Bering Strait is one of the most dangerous places on Earth. It's only 55 miles wide, but storms can appear out of nowhere. Ice drifts like a quiet hunter, and powerful winds tear across the water. Over the last few hundred years, hundreds of ships have been lost here, and thousands of people have been hurt or gone missing in these cold, rough seas. U.S. Coast Guard reports still respond to distress calls here every year, proof that even with modern ships and GPS, the strait can turn deadly in an instant. This narrow stretch of water has been both a bridge and a barrier. It carried the first people into the Americas, became a tense front line during the Cold War, and today, it's still one of the hardest places for ships to cross. This is the story of the Bering Strait, a place that shaped history, affects our world's climate, and still challenges every ship that tries to cross it. On its eastern side lies Alaska. On the western side, the Chukotka Peninsula of Russia, and right in the middle sit the Diomede Islands, two rocky outcrops separated by less than 3 miles of water, but divided by the international date line. On a clear day, you can literally stand on American soil and see tomorrow waiting on the Russian shore. But this strait wasn't always filled with water. During the last ice age, sea levels were hundreds of feet lower, and a land bridge linked Siberia to North America. Across this frozen corridor, known as Beringia, humans, mammoths, and countless other species made their way east, shaping the story of the Americas forever. When the glaciers melted and seas rose, the land bridge disappeared, leaving behind a shallow but dangerous stretch of water. Today, the Bering Strait averages less than 160 feet deep, shallow enough that storms churn the bottom and push water and ice with enormous force. It isn't just a line on a map. It's a natural funnel where continents meet, where history was set in motion, and where survival is still dictated by the elements. Because of that position, the Bering Strait has always carried weight far beyond its size. It is the only maritime gateway between the Pacific and the Arctic, a crossroads watched closely for centuries. During the Cold War, it became a frozen front line, with the United States on one shore and the Soviet Union on the other. But importance here has always come with risk. Every ship that enters this strait faces the same hazards: drifting ice, violent currents, and sudden storms. And for many throughout history, the crossing has ended in disaster. The dangers of the Bering Strait are relentless. Each winter, massive sheets of ice surge south from the Arctic, colliding with the northbound flow from the Pacific. A ship can be surrounded in hours, locked tight as the ice closes in. Captains have described the sound of the ice grinding against a hull as deafening, like metal under a giant saw. Pressure ridges can rise 20 feet high, pushing against ships until they split apart. The currents are no less treacherous. Water races through this funnel non-stop, spinning into swirling flows that can shove a vessel miles off course. And above it all comes the weather. With no land to slow it down, the wind tears across the strait unchecked, driving waves that slam into steel hulls and rolling in fog so thick it blinds radar. In winter, these storms strike in total darkness, with temperatures plunging far below zero. Each of these dangers would be bad enough on their own. But in the Bering Strait, they combine, turning this short passage into one of the most unpredictable and hostile places on Earth. In 1728, Vitus Bering, the Danish explorer sailing for Russia, proved that Asia and North America were divided by water. But the strait that carried his name would also claim his life. On a later voyage, storms and scurvy devastated his crew. His ship wrecked on a barren island where Bering himself died in the freezing cold. Yet even then, his men refused to give in. They scavenged wood from the wreck, built a smaller vessel by hand, and somehow sailed it back across the strait to safety. Only about half of Bering's crew survived that voyage, which makes their handmade escape across the Arctic one of history's most improbable rescues. The 1800s brought fleets of whalers into the region, chasing fortune in Arctic waters, but many found only tragedy. In 1871, an entire fleet of 33 American whaling ships became trapped in ice north of the strait. More than 1,200 sailors watched as the ice crushed their vessels one by one. Against all odds, most survived by trekking across the floes to rescue ships waiting farther south, a rare escape in a place that usually offered none. Not all were so fortunate. Countless other vessels were lost to drifting ice and sudden storms, their names forgotten, their crews swallowed without a trace. Between 1840 and 1900, more than 160 whaling ships were lost in Arctic waters, many of them near the strait. For the sailors' families back home, most received no closure, only silence. The Bering Strait became a graveyard of broken timbers scattered across an endless sheet of white. Even the modern era offered no protection. During the Cold War, the strait was a frozen frontier where US and Soviet ships, subs, and aircraft shadowed each other in secrecy. Some never made it home, accidents buried in classified reports, but remembered by the sailors who patrolled these waters. And yet, in the same seas that destroyed fleets, there were also stories of resilience so unlikely they became legend. For the indigenous peoples of the region, the Yupik, Chukchi, and Inupiat, crossing the strait wasn't exploration, it was life. For generations, they hunted walrus and whales, navigating shifting ice in skin boats, reading the wind and water with a precision outsiders could barely comprehend. To them, survival in the Bering Strait wasn't luck, it was tradition. In the modern age, adventurers tried to test themselves against the same waters. In 1987, swimmer Lynn Cox crossed the strait's frigid channel, braving currents, hypothermia, and drifting ice for more than 2 hours. She emerged exhausted and shaking, but alive. A feat so astonishing, it drew praise from both American and Soviet leaders at the height of the Cold War. Others have followed on skis, in kayaks, or on foot across shifting ice, some succeeding, others vanishing into the storm. Each attempt is a reminder that the Bering Strait offers no guarantees. From wrecked fleets to hand-built rescues, from hunters in skin boats to modern explorers, the Bering Strait has been both executioner and teacher. It punishes weakness, rewards resilience, and leaves behind stories that turn disaster into legend. Today, ships are stronger, navigation is smarter, and satellites watch every mile of open sea. But in the Bering Strait, even the most advanced vessels can still find themselves at the mercy of the elements. Ice remains the constant threat. Each winter, pack ice grinds through the channel, surrounding ships in hours and locking them in place. The storms are no less brutal. Winds roar with hurricane strength, waves batter steel hulls, and heavy fog blinds even the best equipment. In the depths of winter, these storms strike in total darkness, when the cold itself can kill. And now, a new risk is rising. As the climate warms, the ice retreats earlier each year, and more ships are entering these waters, cargo freighters, oil tankers, even cruise liners packed with tourists. In 2016, the Crystal Serenity became the first luxury cruise ship to sail through Arctic waters with 1,700 people aboard. Experts warned that one mishap in these isolated seas could spark one of the largest Arctic disasters ever recorded. Most crossings may end safely, but in the Bering Strait, it takes only a rogue wave, a sudden engine failure, or a single wrong calculation for disaster to strike. The Bering Strait is more than a crossing. It is a gateway that links the Pacific and the Arctic. With every tide, vast amounts of water flow north and south, sending ripples across the globe. Scientists say this constant exchange helps drive global ocean circulation, meaning changes in this one narrow passage can ripple into weather patterns thousands of miles away. It is also one of Earth's richest areas of biological life. These waters are packed with nutrients that feed huge swarms of plankton and krill, the base of a food chain that sustains whales, walrus, seals, seabirds, and the indigenous communities who have relied on them for thousands of years. The Bering Strait is harsh, unpredictable, and often deadly. But it is also essential, a passage that helps sustain both the Arctic and the wider world. No matter how much technology improves, this wild and unpredictable place remains in control. Every trip is a challenge, and every safe crossing is hard-earned. If you enjoy true stories of survival and the world's most dangerous places, make sure to subscribe. And tell me in the comments, would you dare to cross the Bering Strait? Or is this one stretch of water you'd rather avoid?